So what makes you want to be part of this project?
I would say since the 20th anniversary, and again since having children, it's been really important for me to continue to share my father's legacy with not only now my children, but with the world. So I feel like anytime there's an opportunity to put a face to a name, it's an opportunity that I don't want to miss. My dad was a very silly, funny, amazing guy. He was a firefighter. He loved saving people. He loved helping people. He was a very generous man. He loved just being in a line of service and helping people in any way he could. When my mom married him, he was a button salesman in the garment district. But he had always wanted to be a fireman, and there's not many Jewish firemen out there. So I think when he changed his mind, I think my mom was pretty surprised. But she knew this is exactly what he wanted to do. And when he was at work, you can tell that this is what, he needed to be doing with his life. So I was actually maybe like a week into my fall semester as a freshman in college on the morning of September 11th. So I actually found out because I was on my way to class and I hadn't had the TV on, and one of my dorm neighbors told me that I needed to stay in my room because something had happened, and I honestly had no idea. Put on the news, and I called my mother, who at the time was teaching kindergarten in a school in New Jersey, and she just said to me, yeah, Dad's at work. Like, it is what it is. Like, go about your day. And I did. And it was interesting because I think everybody around me knew that something was going on, and for me, this was just a normal day in the life of having a father that was a firefighter. And then I guess as the day progressed and into the next day, it became pretty obvious that I needed to get home, but air travel had been suspended, and they didn't know how to get me home because I was about, 4,000 miles away in Florida. A lady that I used to play soccer with, she was at a business trip in Florida, and she happened to call my mother, and she just said, I'm getting a car and I'm driving home, and I'm going to pick your daughter up and drive her. So I spent 24 hours in a car with her, and we just drove home. And she didn't put the radio on, and I had no idea what was happening, and I came home. And then we started coming into the city to kind of see what was going on and what was happening. And at the firehouse, they were convinced that this was going to be a rescue mission, and that there was like blueprints all over the firehouse tables, and they were just going to go in there and get everybody out. So I think for a long time, that's what I thought. I don't know. I think I knew, but I don't think I knew. But that's how I got home and where I was, and it was a lot.
Do you think because it was so public and the world was sort of grieving with everybody, was it helpful? Did it make a difference?
To be honest, at the time, I don't think I was even aware of it. I think I was in my own bubble. Yeah. I do remember, because we are Jewish, that we basically sat Shiva for like 3 straight weeks. And I remember that my mom just said, it's enough, and I can't do this anymore. And, Tara needs to go back to school, and my brother Michael needs to go back to school, and we just need to go on with our lives. And at that point, still 3 weeks into this, they still were considering this like a rescue mission. There was no death certificates to be issued. And I just remember it was time. Like, the people were in and out of our house, and the food and the donations, and it was so overwhelming, but it also made it very difficult to feel, because I felt like I had to constantly greet people and say hi and be there for them. And again, because it was so public, everybody had their own feelings and emotions around it, that it was hard to, I guess, share my feelings and emotions, because they were actually very raw and very different than somebody who just was watching.
Right.
But yeah, that was a very strange time.
And did they find your father at all?
No. Years later, we received CDs with the recordings of all the transmission, the walkie-talkies that the fire department had, and from what they deciphered, they feel that my dad was on his way to the 70th floor. And now at the museum, when you go to different rooms and you can hear some of the audio footage, there is actual audio footage of my dad on a walkie-talkie saying something like, "We're here, we're going up." So right when I came back from Florida, one of the first things we did was we actually went down to ground zero a couple of days later. I don't remember the time frame because the days just kind of blurred, but I do remember taking a boat over and walking through some of, I guess, the safer, I'm gonna call it wreckage that they let the public into. And I just remember it being so overwhelming, and it just, like, there couldn't have been, so, yeah, I don't know. I just I don't know what to think anymore, or where, or what, but part of me does feel that there is no closure in that aspect, not having anything, but at the same time, I don't know what I would feel if I did find something out at this point. I would say for a long time it was just survival mode, and it was just kind of like going through the motions and kind of crossing off the to-do list of things that I had always wanted to do in my life, obviously before September 11th, because I do feel like my life is very much like September 10th, 2001, and that like life ended, and then this life began on September 12th. And I wanted to keep that life, the same for me, but it couldn't be. But I did all the things. I mean, I graduated college, I got my master's degree, I met my husband, got married, bought a house, we had kids. So I feel like, it was kind of just survival mode and get there and cross those things off the to-do list. And now, fortunately and unfortunately, those things are off my to-do list, and now I feel like I'm first coming around to dealing with the grief and also figuring out how I'm going to create this legacy for my children who are old enough to know and ask questions and, weren't here that day. But overall, I think it was just survival mode for a long time.
And Tara, last question. If someone's watching this video and they're dealing with their own grief, and what would you say to them? What words of encouragement or advice would you give them?
I would say that the grief doesn't get any smaller. You just have to learn to grow bigger around it. Those are the words of my favorite Peloton instructor, Jess King. But I do feel like everyone is going through their own thing, and what you're going through is yours, and it can be big, and it could be bigger, it could be small, but it's yours, and you get to own it, and you get to share it however you want, and you get to sit in it, or you get to move on from it, and you get to deal with it however you want to deal with it.